So now we get to the Glorious Revolution. Now, the Parliament had finally found a good way to depose James, right? This change in power would later become known as the Glorious Revolution, and the Parliament, as I'd said before, conspired to marry Mary off to William of Orange. After this, they asked William to invade England and become the new king. He refused the first two offers, but the third and final offer he decided to accept. So, William of Orange claimed the English throne. All that was left to do was invade the British Isles and depose his father-in-law. And this happened at the invasion of Torbay. Now, Torbay was a small port on the British coast, as we can see with the map here. It's in the southwestern part of Britain, right? This made it the perfect place for William to land because it wasn't too close to London, where James might be able to rally his forces, nor was it in some obscure area in northern England or even Wales. So his fleet sailed into this port on November 5th of 1688, and this would become the only military action in the war, considering the conflict was a bloodless transfer of power. And thus we reach the political abdication. James II, as I said, as can be inferred, was facing a pretty difficult situation. His own daughter had betrayed him. A foreign power had landed on his shores. His parliament hated him and refused to give him any financial support. They were blocking him out of every war that he tried to start. And this meant that he could not raise his armies. So he couldn't raise or fund his armies. So he had nothing to fight off the invasion with. Thus, he was forced to flee from his home. The English Catholics had been thrown out of power, and the Protestants would then lead the nation. And lastly, the Glorious Revolution was completed. But here's the issue. A lot of people claim that it's not really legal. Now, typically it's seen as more of a positive action from some historical books, considering the Catholics were removed from the mostly Anglican nation. However, this was a coup d'etat of the English government, right? The Parliament had essentially created a situation in which James II could not be a foreign invader, right? And that foreign invader was married to his daughter, and he was forced to abdicate. But this kind of calls into question the legitimacy of his rule. And this is what really causes the issue. William was not English royalty. He married into royalty, and yet that didn't really give him a claim to the throne. Therefore, his reign kind of required the help of the Parliament to stabilize the country, and this would significantly increase the power of the Parliament, just because of how important they were to securing William's reign. And lastly, we get to his legacy. Now, he left a pretty significant legacy on England, right? His reign showed specifically how powerful the Parliament had become. Parliament was able to completely overthrow the Stuarts that had reigned in England. His reign also created a new sentiment in which Catholics were distrusted, right? He firmly established Protestantism as the official religion of England. His marriage also brought England and the Netherlands closer together. This was pretty important because it allowed the two powers to grow as nation states. Now, his marriage with Mary blocked any alliance with the French. This meant that the former English Catholic crown did not have a Catholic backing, because at the time, France was Catholic. And thus, the Catholics were overruled, overrun, and the state became firmly Protestant.